It's time for Mac Geek Gab, and I have our quick tip of the week. I noticed this week I had told my iPhone to download a bunch of updates for apps, and then there was one app that I wanted to launch, 50 updates or something were going in the background. And of course, the app that I wanted to launch was one of the ones in the queue. So I long pressed on that app, and it allowed me to prioritize the download of the update. I know you could do this when setting up a phone through migration, initially, which is why I tried it, but I did not know if it would work, and it does. More quick tips like this, plus your questions answered and some cool stuff found too today on Mac Geek Gab 983 for Monday, Memorial Day here in the U.S., May 29th, 2023. Folks, and welcome to Mac Geek Gab, the show where you send in your quick tips, like the one I just shared, your cool stuff found, like we'll share in a little bit, your questions, which we will try to answer. We take all of that stuff, you send them into feedback at macgeekgab.com. We take all that stuff, we string it together into an agenda, and the goal is that each of us learns at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include shadyrays.com/MGG, where you can go and use code MGG. When you buy one pair of Shady Rays, you get a second pair for free. And notion.com/MacGeekGab, where you can go and for a limited time, try Notion AI for free. We'll talk more in depth about each of those in a little bit. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in Fairfield, Connecticut, this is John F. Braun.
And here in Lee, New Hampshire, it's Pilot Pete.
Pilot Pete wringing his hands right in front of the microphone for everyone to hear.
Sorry, we love that.
Yeah.
We love
for
that.
a limited try, you two.
Now he's over my job.
And he's screaming into his microphone. This is going to be great.
Right. Yeah,
I can tell it's going to be great.
Make it stop. I'll go away.
Make it stop.
Please.
All right. Where do we go first, Mr. Braun?
Let's start things off here with a few announcements, shall we?
Okay. Sure.
Okay. I've got a few of them here. So the first one is I am going to be retiring from podcasting to focus on other interests.
This is obviously I knew this coming in. This is a surprise for our listeners. Yeah. Well, I will miss doing the show with you. I will miss getting the opportunity to hang out every week. When we were creating this show almost 18 years ago, we had Mac Observer running, podcasting was becoming a thing. And I was also right at that time about to move from Connecticut to New Hampshire. When I had moved to Austin about 6 years before that, you and I met when I was 15. I won't share what your age was. I think you're older than me. Yeah, right. I mean, I think you were about 20 at the time, right? But whatever. We're about 5 years apart, and obviously we lived near each other and hung out a bunch. And then when I moved to Austin, we kept in touch, but it was every couple of months or whatever. It was certainly less frequent, as often will happen when people don't live in proximity. And then when I moved back to Connecticut, we started hanging out regularly again. We would watch X-Files or whatever it was together. And so when I knew we were moving to New Hampshire, it was right at the same time we were starting this show or a show at Mac Observer. And I was trying to figure out what the show should be. I thought, well, wait a minute. If John and I do this show together, that gives us a reason to, stay in touch more regularly, even though I'm leaving. And it has served that purpose for obviously quite well. So that part of this is it is what it is. Yeah.
Well, from a listener perspective, I came into listening to you guys when it was Dave and John. So you'll be missed, John. This is a special thing you guys put together and built. And
Thank you.
I'm honored to be part of it.
Yeah, and I reflect on when we started the podcast, we thought people wanted to hear what we thought about things. And then it morphed into a more tech support type deal. We also talk news and all that, but the news space is kind of crowded, whereas the troubleshooting space, I think, is less crowded. I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but no, the show's evolved and it's evolving again. So
yeah. So we have there is no replacing John F. Braun. I don't need to say that, but I'll say it anyway. We will obviously, the show will continue on. Pete and I will do our level best to soldier forth. And there are a list of people who have been guests on the show, and some of them will continue to join us at times, but there is no and waiting in the wings is person X as, the John's replacement. There is no John's replacement. But when Pete can't make it, this is not a show I would ever do by myself. And so when Pete can't make it, there will be other people. And sometimes we'll bring in a third person, even with, when it's just me and Pete too. So, or when Pete can make it, I should say, because if we brought in a third person, then it wouldn't just be me and Pete. But,
right.
That's just how logic works. I don't get to control that. So where can people keep in touch with you and find you and see you?
So there's Twitter, John F. Braun. I'm on Facebook, search for John F. Braun. LinkedIn, I don't use it that much these days.
Are you on Mastodon yet?
I'm sticking with Twitter, even though they're ruining it.
Okay.
In my humble opinion,
sure.
It hasn't gotten better.
Sure.
Yeah, I was very sad when my Twitterific client all of a sudden stopped working because I really liked that client. So,
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
But there's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. What else am I on? Instagram.
Yeah.
I publish pictures there. So if you want to keep in touch, any of those venues would be fine.
Cool. All right.
And then to round things out here, Dave and I will be attending MacStock Conference and Expo in July. So if you're in the Chicago area, come by and say hi.
And if you're not, come to the Chicago area and come by and say hi. Absolutely. And I think if the schedules all work, I think, Pete, you're going to be in attendance there too.
That's the plan at this point. Yeah.
That's the plan.
I'm going to do my level best to be there, assuming I can get off of work. There's that work thing.
There you go. There
it
you go.
interferes with my social life and my podcasting and tech life.
Well, you got to fly the plane. Somebody's got to fly the plane, and they don't let me do it, Pete. So
yeah, I want my stuff, man. Where's my stuff?
Yeah, there's that. People want their stuff, and the company doesn't pay me if I don't go to work. They're so cheap. I don't get it. Just not fair.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
All right, John, you want to take us into quick tips, my friend?
Yeah, we got a quick one here from our friend Bill, who says in Mac Geek Gab 982, there was a reference to changing the scrolling behavior by pressing the Option key. Dave and others seemed excited about using the Option key to scroll to the spot clicked in the scroll bar. If this is truly the preferred behavior, a better option, pun intended, is probably to change the behavior directly in the appearance setting in System Settings. At the bottom of that screen, you can select the default behavior for when one clicks in the scroll bar, jump to the next page, or jump to the spot that's clicked. Choosing the latter does just what was discussed on the podcast. It should be noted that the Option key merely enables whatever choice is not the default. If jump to the spot that's clicked is the default, using the Option key makes the scroll bar move page by page and vice versa. So thank you very much, Bill. I question them putting this in the appearance settings. I don't think that's really an appearance thing, but
yeah,
what do I know?
I don't.
I would not think that would be there.
No, and I don't know that I was even aware that this was. I mean, I don't know that there was any point in time where I was aware that this was an option that you could choose. Clearly, recently I wasn't, because I was so happy to find out that you could, again, no pun intended, click the option or hold down option and click and jump to that. I may make this change on my devices. Yeah, I don't know. That's good to know it's where it is, I guess. Let's see. Patrick has a quick tip for us. He says, maybe everyone knows this, but when searching for a particular email in Apple Mail, you can put in multiple search terms. For example, you could search for an email from Dave to John, or you could search for an email from, Director of Finance and also about inventory. And this is true. Mail searching is weird, or I guess like it's searching, but it's also really filtering is what you're doing. You kind of have to give it time. I have found no way to say, this is the end of search term 1. Now here is search term 2. The way I do it is like if I wanted to look for an email from Dave to John, or from John that also included to Pete, right? Because in theory, I would have to I would type like John F. Braun and wait, and the little menu would drop down, magically appear and show John F. Braun, and then I would choose John F. Braun, and then I would choose from on the little thing. And now I'm done with first criterion. It's going to start, filtering by that. Then right next to that in the search box, I could type, Pilot Pete and wait, and hopefully it shows me a drop down again. And I would choose Pilot Pete, and then I would, next to his name, I would choose to. And then if I wanted to look for something that had, a word in the subject, I would type another word and wait, and then hopefully be able to choose subject contains X. It's a little weird, but you can do it. And I appreciate Patrick sending this in to remind us all that it is a doable thing. It's just not, I haven't found a way to make it clear that like, this is the end of one search term. Here's the next one.
Could you use something like and?
I don't think so.
It doesn't seem to let you.
No.
Okay.
Probably the worst. Search.
Or like put it in quotes and separate it with an and. Would it be smart enough to parse that properly?
I haven't tried that. But let me look to see. No, because
and it starts trying to do a new term.
It starts,
the word and.
It doesn't.
Word and.
And if I put a thing in quotes, it says subject contains quote a thing quote. Like it's looking for. It doesn't understand that I'm trying to give it a term with quote. No, it doesn't. It doesn't get the hint. Mail doesn't get the hint.
Yeah,
is really what it comes down to.
And it makes it so hard to find things. And then the strings are so...
They're so weird. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're trying to look through it. Like I tried to print out an email today from one of the listeners and the question that got answered, and I could print either his last answer or the first two, but it wouldn't print all three.
Amazing.
His first question and my answer.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Stop.
Yeah. I mean, what's happening with mail is it's trying to be smart. It's trying to guess what you want.
Right.
And so like while you're typing, it's furiously feeding that into Spotlight in some way and trying to say, are you looking for email with this subject line that contains part of the text that you typed? It's just a little, it's trying. I wish there was a way to say, stop guessing. Like I appreciate your attempts at guessing, but please stop guessing and just let me choose the criteria I want to search by.
Right.
And I guess the way to do that would be to build a smart mailbox. As crazy as that sounds.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean, it's always there, man.
It's right. It's a permanent thing. I mean, you can delete them, but like that would be the way to to truly dictate the criteria would
That's
be a
actually
smart mailbox.
Great idea.
I know I haven't thought about that until this moment. And now that I have, it's like, well, obviously what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have one smart mailbox that is, kind of my catch-all or my morphing one. And it'll be like, all right, well, now I want the smart mailbox to be this.
Yeah, just edit the terms that it searches for.
Just edit the terms. Yeah. Oh, I love doing this show.
It makes me sad, though, because the find capabilities in the Finder are much more powerful or flexible.
Yeah. Flexible and
I don't know
like
why
tweakable.
They don't use the same interface.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Yep. Yeah, because that's what
Spotlight.
I want.
Yeah, Finder's using Spotlight, right? Yeah.
As is Mail. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's more notes. Find any file. We've mentioned them before.
Yeah.
That does really good. I haven't looked to see if that can get down into the Mail database. I bet it can.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I have not gotten back to them. I told them I would look at trying to do a video, some tutorial on that. I need to get off my backside and do that.
There you go. All right. Shall we move to the next? I
yes.
mean, that became far more than a quick tip, but I like it. It's good.
All right. This one should be pretty quick. The title of this is Tip, Expensive Lesson Learned.
Okay.
From jkerns. Hi, guys. Your good info and banter are most eagerly awaited addition to the enjoyment of more than just my tech life, so thank you. You're welcome. My tip. The day I got the ship notice for my replacement right AirPod Pro 2 2nd Gen was, of course, the day I found it. Where was it hiding out of range of Find My? In the RFID protection section of my purse. Now, while probably everyone else in the current universe knows better, I did not and passed this on to the few remaining people in my situation. I suppose I should also refrain from putting my AirTagged car keys in that same passport section. Since I had to pay for the now redundant right pod, I guess I kind of got caught.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, first off, I didn't know that they, because I don't have a purse, I didn't know that they made a special compartment.
Backpacks have this
RF.
too.
Okay.
Like the passport pocket in a lot of the passport pockets that exist in backpacks are RFID shielded. So that people aren't able, because your passport has RFID in it now. And so the passport pockets are just built to be RFID shielded. A lot of them, not all of them, of course. And so thinking, oh, great, I'll put my wallet in there with it. Like if your wallet has an AirTag in it, or, your AirPods could potentially fit in one of those pockets. Like, yeah, it's a good reminder that RFID shielding works.
Yeah.
I mean,
Two quick
it
thoughts.
does its job.
Yeah.
I've heard some people suggest, if you're uncomfortable with that, the other thing you could do is smash the RFID chip. So that's probably
on your passport.
Yeah,
that would make life really difficult and interesting when traveling. I mean, most countries, and I don't travel nearly as much as you, Pete, but like most places I go, even overseas, I'm using my RFID passport. Like getting into Germany, I was and Germany and Mexico, I was able to like fly past all the people waiting in line because I was able to use my RFID passport.
Right.
Are you getting the same thing when you travel around too, Pete?
No. Well, we're treated differently.
Of course.
Because we're aircrew, we get right to the front of the line, and because we're cargo aircrew, we get right to a booth where they only deal with cargo aircrew often. But that being said, when I do travel on company business, I go to a crew line. I can't remember the last time I traveled on tourist status.
Sure. Yeah, of course. No, I would. Listen, if I didn't have to travel on tourist status, I would not.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
got
very nice. I'm going to miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had to upgrade my passport a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So I got not only the book, but I got a passport card, which you got to pay a little extra for.
Sure.
But the last time I traveled, when I came to TSA, I gave them that instead of my license. I'm like, I wonder if this will work. And they're like, yep, come on through.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think the passport card is usable everywhere. I think that's only
No.
for land borders to Mexico and Canada. Is that?
I'm pretty sure Mexico, Canada, and Virgin Islands or some
Okay.
territory.
That makes
maybe,
sense. Yeah.
Maybe cruise ships, like ship and back. But I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. Cruise
You know,
ships.
what girl isn't here to ask.
Okay. Yeah. Cruise ships won't take like your real ID, which is about the same as a passport card, I think. I've always, when I had to go get my license, I did, whatever this was, a number of years ago, I did the real ID thing just to have that. And they're like, you need to bring your passport and all these other forms of, these other things to prove you are who you are. And it's like, I said to him, my passport is like the real ID driver's license can do a subset of things that my passport can do. But my passport can do all of that, what that can do and more. They're like, right, other than you driving. I'm like, right, but we've already established the fact that you're going to let me drive. So I'm like, why do you need more than my passport then? Because my passport, I don't need a real ID if I'm willing to carry my passport everywhere.
Right.
I don't know. Like, it's one of those weird things.
It is strange. But quickly back to the AirPods. I'm wondering if she can't get her money back for the AirPod. I would think
maybe
I'll be able to return that.
Yeah, within time. Sure.
Yeah, certainly
They have a
30
return
days
policy.
or so.
Yeah.
The other one, excuse me. Wow, excuse me. Was I just wanted to relay that I had a delay in one the other day. I AirPods turned on Find My. Couldn't find them. They're far away. Looked all over the house. And I went, oh, I know where I left them. Went right down there with the phone. Could not connect to find them. Holding them right against the phone. It refused.
Yeah. It's not perfect.
Every now and then it's just like,
Yep. There's something, we are aware that there's something going on with Pete's mic today. You're cutting out like occasionally. People got what you were saying, but there's something on your Mac that's
you know what? I'm going to kill
interfering
audio
with your
hijack
mic.
for now. Then I just think that's the extra new.
Oh yeah, maybe.
In there. So let me kill that.
Sure. I noticed this morning I was actually cooking eggs in the kitchen, and Lisa was there, and she had a timer running for. She had a timer on her watch running for like watering the grass or whatever it was, and then she told her watch, Siri, set a second timer for some other thing that she was going to do, and it was like, okay, second timer for some other thing is set, and I was like, right. You can do that on the watch. You can't set two timers on your phone, not with Siri and not with the clock app. If you launch the clock app, you'll see there's interface for one timer. If you ask Siri on your phone, set a timer for, like I was cooking eggs. So I said, set a 3-minute egg timer. And it was like, great. And then I told it, set a 5-minute Pat the Cat timer. And it was like, do you want to replace your other timer that's going? And it's like, aha, you can't do it, can you? So the watch is able to do multiple timers. The phone is not. And you can do it on the watch with our favorite S lady. Or you can, like, and we've mentioned that part before, you can do it in the timers app as well. So
it's
just one of those things.
Capable?
It's, it's just one of those things. It's just one of those things. Speaking of the watch, in Discord this week, PCUnix said, it was in a discussion about long watch passcodes, which of course mean that unlocking your watch with a passcode means you have to tap lots, because if you've got a long passcode. PCUnix said, I've noted before that unlocking your phone will unlock your watch when you've just put it back on, but that sometimes it is slow to do so. That's true. Sometimes it just doesn't do it when you want. One trick, he says, I've found is to call up the watch app on the phone. That usually wakes it up and unlocks the watch. So if you don't want to bother typing in the passcode and your unlocked phone hasn't automatically unlocked your watch, just launch the watch app, and sometimes that'll do the trick too. So thanks for sharing that, PCUnix. I like it. What else we got? Pete, you got another one for us?
I do. At the risk of running a Verizon commercial first, could you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
All right. So Scott writes in, he says, I use the handy function known as silence unknown callers to manage my calls and prevent many, but not all, spam calls from getting through to me and disturbing my workflow. Sometimes, however, I need to turn it off when I'm expecting a call from someone I don't know their number and they're not in my contacts so that they can get through. So he said, so I've created a shortcut that I can invoke by telling the S lady, silence unknown callers off. That prevents me from having to open settings and use find to locate that setting. I created another one called silence unknown callers on to allow me to reinitiate once the caller has reached me, and I can block spam calls going forward without risk of missing that important call and that unknown number. To which I replied, that's a great idea. I hadn't considered doing that. I've been using the focus mode, which gets you substantially more granular to do that, but not everyone wants to play with the focus modes. People I've tried to educate about it, some are resistant, some are like, oh, that's cool, show me how. So the focus mode is what I've been doing, but that shortcut idea is a great one. And then pre-show question. And,
all right, I'm going to stop you, Pete, because whatever you changed didn't help.
No.
You're still like cutting in and out. But
this is killing me. Okay.
Yeah. I would say in a little bit here, if there's some time, we'll have you just unplug your mic and replug it because it's going to
I'll do that while you're talking next.
Okay, great, great. Yeah. I have two quick tips about.
I just want to mention.
Yeah, go ahead, John. Sorry.
For filtering spam, if you are a Verizon customer, they do have something called call filter, which goes against the database of known spam numbers. So just to add that, it's like another layer of protection. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's good to know. Yeah. I noticed two things in the recent updates that we have seen here with Mac OS and iOS. iOS 16.5 adds Siri commands for screen recordings. So you can tell it to start a screen recording, stop a screen recording. Super handy, much better than even the previous shortcut to do that, of course, which was in Control Center, because that's something you can add there. But yeah. So those little commands for screen recordings, go check them out. And the other one that I found was something we've talked about here on the show, which is that macOS 13.4 solves the slow Bluetooth issue that we have experienced here at Mac Geek Gab, and a lot of you have experienced too. So if you haven't updated to both of those yet, please go ahead and do that, and hopefully all of your problems, or at least those very specific issues, will be solved. All right, Pete, imagine this. You've just bought a pair of these fancy mortgage-level expensive sunglasses, and as you step outside, a bird flies by and snatches them right off your face. Gone. That's painful in more ways than one, but not for me. I've got Shady Rays, our sponsor for this week. These bad boys are like the superhero of sunglasses, minus the spandex suit.
Now, Shady Rays are the quality sunglasses. They've got the same swank as the high-end ones, but they're priced like they've got common sense. You don't need a celebrity paycheck to afford them.
No, that's true. Built like an off-road tank, Shady Rays can handle whatever life chucks at them. Hiking in the mountains, surfing killer waves, rocking a spontaneous limbo dance contest at a beach party. Bring it on. My family's been using Shady Rays for years, and they are fantastic sunglasses. Their styles are as timeless as my dad jokes, and they make me look good, like almost as good as I think I look in the mirror.
And all their sunglasses come with polarized lenses. That's like having a built-in Instagram filter for your eyes, making everything look crystal clear. And they protect you from the sun better than a vampire at an SPF 100 party.
The best part about Shady Rays is their lost and broken replacements program. It's like they've got a sixth sense. Break or lose your pair the second you take them out of the box, they'll send you a replacement pair. No questions asked.
Oh, Shady Rays is like an overeager friend who just wants you to be happy. So they give you a 30-day trial. Don't like them? Well, exchange them or return them, and it won't cost you a dime. Wow, what's better than getting one pair of Shady Rays and not worrying if you break or lose them? Getting two. Go to shadyrays.com/MGG and use the code MGG. And for a limited time, when you buy one pair of Shady Rays, you'll get a second pair free. That's ShadyRays.com/MGG, code MGG to get a second pair of Shady Rays free.
That's shadyrays.com/MGG, code MGG, and our thanks to Shady Rays for sponsoring this episode. All right, look. You're deep in your workspace working on something. You've got a jumble of notes, to-do lists, brain dumps, half-baked blog posts, scribbled gibberish that you can't even decipher. There's chaos in your digital world, and you need a superhero. Cue dramatic music.
Dun, dun, dun.
Here comes Notion AI. Think of it as a Swiss Army knife with a brain. That's the new secret sauce of Notion, our sponsor today. And boy, is it a game changer.
Now, AI has been doing the rounds, buzzing around like a hyperactive bee. But how does it fit into your daily life, right? Like fitting a round peg into a square hole. Wrong. Notion AI plugs straight into your Notion workspace, so you don't have to jump to some other AI tool. It's right there. It's like your work's got its own personal assistant, only smarter. And no, it doesn't need coffee breaks either.
This is like that kid in class who did all the work while you got the credit. Notion AI helps you work faster, write better, and think bigger, doing tasks that normally take you hours in just seconds. Seriously, it's like time travel without the DeLorean.
That's good because I can't afford DeLorean parts. But imagine a magical keyboard that types for you. Notion AI, write me a blog post about why cats rule the internet. And there you have it, a beautifully crafted piece about our feline overlords. Good kitty. Want an outline for your next great novel? A brainstorm of business ideas, a summary of your 200-page thesis that reads like a spy novel? Just ask Notion AI.
So embrace the future, folks. Let Notion AI be your very own digital superhero, helping you leap tall tasks in a single bound. And for a limited time, try Notion AI for free when you go to notion.com/Mac Geek Gab. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/Mac Geek Gab to try out the incredible power of Notion AI today. And when you use our link, you're supporting the show.
This is a limited time offer. Try Notion AI for free right now at notion.com/Mac Geek Gab. And our thanks to Notion AI for sponsoring this episode.
All right. John, you want to take us to Michael's question?
Yeah, this is going to be a rough one. So Michael says, longtime listener, I have an old guy challenge. Okay. When I put on my watch, the notifications from my phone stop making sounds or flashing. As someone with low sensitivity, I cannot feel or hear my watch all the time. Is there a way to enable notifications on both devices simultaneously? If not, I will continue to rant at Apple for this slight inaccessibility. I don't know if I have a good answer for you here. Though I did find a Apple support article titled, "Can I get notifications on both my phone and my watch?" And someone in that thread gave a pretty detailed analysis of what you can do.
Okay.
And about the only thing he could come up with is if you go to the watch app on your phone and then go to passcode, there's an option, wrist detection. And the person who posted this said that may do it. Here's the bad news, though, Dave. Pete, if you try to disable that feature, here's the bad news. If you turn off wrist detection, your Apple Watch will not lock or unlock automatically. Fall detection will not automatically start emergency SOS. There's the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things that. So I don't think it's worth it. So I'm with you. Continue to rant at Apple.
Yeah. Well, there might be. I agree with you. First of all, that it would be better if there was a way to just say, give me my notifications everywhere. I'm okay with getting duplicates, because that's what Apple's trying to avoid here, right? If for anybody who uses Slack, there is a way of saying to Slack, be more aggressive notifying me on my phone, but I accept that I might get duplicate notifications on desktop versus phone. It tries to be smart about it. It tries to deduce whether you're active on your desktop and then it doesn't notify you on your phone and vice versa. And you can, like I said, you can change that setting. I would love that kind of granularity from Apple, even with the caveat of, yeah, and I get that I'll get multiple notifications. We don't get that from Apple. It's really not Apple's way. However, one thing Apple does do is allow you to increase the force of those haptic notifications, which happen on your watch. On your watch, go into Settings, and then go to Sounds and Haptics. You got to scroll down a ways, and then scroll down a ways once you're in there, and you'll see in the haptics section, you can set the haptics to prominent. This will make them far more forceful on your wrist. The other thing to do is to make sure you're using a watch band that can get tight enough that you'll feel the haptics, but won't have your watch just jostling around on your wrist. I notice when I use a loose watch band, I either miss notifications or I get misnotified just because my watch is bouncing around and I think I've had like a phantom tap kind of thing. So, but maybe that prominent thing is enough to sort of get you over the hump here, Michael. I don't know, but it's something worth trying. So I don't know. How are the haptics, Pete, on the Ultra?
Oh, they're awesome, and I do have the same thing, prominent. I can make them prominent.
Do you, or do you just?
I just did. I'll see how that goes.
Man, you might jump out of your chair.
Yeah, so many times. Like I said on an earlier show, I've learned to ignore that bump on my wrist. So
yeah,
am I ignoring? I was like, oh, I had text messages an hour ago. I needed the answer. I didn't notice. Yeah. All right, well,
Yeah.
So that's why I tell people, if you're trying to get in touch with me and I'm not answering, just keep bugging me. I'll tune you out if I need to.
Yep.
I promise.
Yep. I'm the same way. I'm a very happy user of various do not disturb modes. And I do it I do it to everybody. My family gets it sometimes too. We have a group, like I think most families do. We have a group text or an iMessage group for the four of us. And sometimes, and I'm guilty of this at times too, but sometimes, two or the other three people will just get going and it'll just be message after message after message. And it's like, yeah, I'm in the middle of like a thing right now. Maybe I'm recording a show, although that's automatically turned off. But, maybe I'm just in the middle of like doing some work and it's like, oh, yep, okay. I'll go on Do Not Disturb for an hour. I got no qualms about that. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Hey, Pete, your audio sounds better, which is...
Oh, that's good. What are the odds? Hey, nothing like a reboot in the backside of my computer.
Yep. That's a Ventura thing. We saw that. Oh, and by the way, folks, stick around. I have something good nice to say about audio and Ventura in a little bit here.
If you can't say something nice, sit next to me.
But that's something we saw with Ventura from my end too, specifically into Chrome. And I think, you might have just been able to restart Chrome because when I was having that issue, that's exactly what I did. And I wish I had thought about that. But
interesting. Because when I did reboot, everything came up, even things that I didn't want coming up, all the login errors.
Yeah, of course.
Except Chrome came up and then was non-responsive. I had to force quit it.
Well, there you go.
Because it was angry at me.
Yeah.
But I need to put that on my checklist. Just reboot everything once before starting the show. And
do you have your computer set to reboot automatically once a week?
I don't. There's another one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I have. We record on Fridays. I have it reboot on Thursdays. Yeah. I don't know why I chose Thursdays. It's like 24 hours before we do the show, and that's generally good enough.
Sure. But, I was just thinking that I bet my audio was good on the commercials too.
Yes, you sounded fantastic on those, see? Pete. Imagine.
It's better to sound
good. I will share something. Obviously, you just heard the first time that we did sort of tandem commercials, or at least the first time in a very, 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 very long time. I can't take credit for any of what I'm about to tell you. This is all Pete's idea. even just doing the Tandem commercials and or Tandem sponsor spots.
Yeah.
They're commercials. I just never have said that word before. At least not to describe them. I've said the word commercials before. But Pete had the great idea of taking the talking points that we get from our sponsors, and instead of just kind of reading them down and riffing on them on our own, Pete said, oh no, paste them into ChatGPT and tell them to make a script and make it funny. And so you, as the listener, get to decide whether or not it was funny, and that's why you were laughing, or you were laughing for the other reason. So there you go.
Dad joke funny. No,
Dad
stop.
joke funny. Right. Make it stop. That's right.
Funny how? Like how? Like a clown?
Like
Do I
a
make you
clown.
laugh?
I entertain you.
Do I amuse you?
I love that scene, and I think he ad-libbed that.
Is that right?
I don't think it was in the script. I think he just, yeah.
That's one of the great scenes in that movie. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Pete, you got a question for us from Nick?
I do. Nick wrote in, and he said, I edit and proofread papers for multiple family members. Nick, I feel your pain, brother. And I come across a repeated item that I don't have a good way to resolve. Since the typing on my is not on my computer, and I was wondering if you have any tips addressing a specific problem. There are spaces added between the words and the punctuation, rather than the punctuation being appended, added, or immediately next to the word. This is, for example, a space, comma, list, comma, list space, comma, that sort of thing. So word, space, and then punctuation. He says, I've looked into, I've tried to build snippet and text expander and autocorrect libraries, and I'm not sure. He says it does not save due to the leading space. So the text expander mode doesn't work. And I also tried it in Rocket Typist, and I couldn't get it to fix. Is there a minimally invasive way to do this without installing software? I played with it with Rocket Typist as well. The only thing I could come up with was in Pages and Word, I used to find and replace. So I went in there. In Pages, it's Command plus F, and then there's a replace option at the bottom. So I just went in and put Command plus F, and then I put space, comma, and replaced it with comma. And it went through and it replaced all of that and moved. It took that space out from in front of the punctuation mark. I did the same thing for the period. And so it's not quite as efficient as maybe a text expander would, but it will. It gives you the option to replace them all. You know, for instance, if it's 10, you can do them all at once if there's 10 in that document. So, Nick, I hope that helps. And if anyone else has a more better idea, serve it up, please.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean,
it's that leading space that the text expander, Rocket Typist, even keystroke. You know, I didn't try keystroke. You know, that you can do keystroke replacements in Apple.
That was what I was thinking was that. Yeah. So if you go into either system preferences or system settings and go into keyboard and go into text replacements, I think is what they call it. It's just such a weird thing. But yeah, it's text or text replacements. And you can put in a phrase and then put in what you want it to replace that with. So you could put in space, comma, and then have it replace it with, say, comma, space, or just comma, you know, whatever. That might be the trick. Yeah. Because then at least, and you'd get the benefit of iOS doing it too. But I think autocorrect on iOS will actually fix this stuff.
This shortcut cannot contain spaces. Please provide a valid word or phrase.
Dang.
I just tried it as you described it, and it got mad at me.
Okay. Thanks, Apple. That's great. Yep. Okay. Well, it was a good idea. Yeah. You might just need third-party software. I mean, it's, it's how it works.
And the find and replace is the other.
Right. If you want to do it manually, sure.
Yeah. But the advantage is it lets you do all 10 at once. You don't have to go one by one by one.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. Fair. Yep. Yep.
Oh, and you put Rocket Typist in the show notes, just as a side note, that is available in SetApp. Sorry, now you got to put SetApp show notes.
I don't. There's listen, I love fleshed out show notes. The more, the merrier in there. And you can get those in your inbox. Go to MacGeekGab.com and just sign up there, and you'll get them every week. So you don't have to miss out on ensuring that you know the show's out and that the show notes are there. And then you can also maybe be the one to remind me if I forgot to change the show in Apple Podcasts from draft to published.
Dave,
you'll get
how
the
would they
email.
do that?
Well, you'll get the email. You just reply to the email. It works
Yeah,
right there.
Well, there's that. But
otherwise,
thinking you might want to write to feedback@macgeekgab.com.
what?
Did I hear that right? Feedback at MacGeekGab.com?
What? I don't know anything about this feedback at MacGeekGab.com. Is this new? Did you do that too when you did the ChatGPT stuff? Oh,
Get after
man.
it.
It's what all the cool kids are doing.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Me too.
There you go. There you go.
All the cool
Okay.
kids and me too.
Moving on. Harvey has a question here. This is going to be John. I'm going to miss you. How do I change the name and extension name on a hard drive? Backblaze stopped backing up one of my drives named Gallifrey because it thinks it is now named Gallifrey 1 with a space in between. Gallifrey space 1. In checking the info window on the drive's name is Gallifrey, but it is listed under the mount point as Gallifrey 1. I've tried to change names multiple ways, and it keeps reverting back to Gallifrey as the Gallifrey 1, as the mounting point, which I think is what Backblaze is reading. Any advice? So listener Steven in Discord had, I think, certainly what I would do first, which is unmount the drive, then go into the volumes folder. So /volumes. You can tell the Finder to go there. Or you can do it in the terminal, however you want. Go to the volumes, the /volumes folder, and remove Gallifrey and Gallifrey 1. And if there's a Gallifrey 2, remove that too. These should be, anything in the /volumes folder should be empty folders. As we've talked about on recent episodes, Unix mounts drives at a folder, right? Or at a, like you create a folder and then just tell it, all right, that's where the drive should be. If that folder exists, as it does in Harvey's case, almost certainly, he has a drive named Gallifrey. macOS says, cool, I'm going to mount that at /volume/Gallifrey. And then it says, oh, nope, there's already a folder there named Gallifrey. Well, it's not going to overwrite it. So it says, all right, cool, no problem. Let's try /volume/Gallifrey 1. And if that fails, it'll go to Gallifrey 2 and Gallifrey 3 and all those things all the way through. Get rid of that volumes Gallifrey folder and it will be able to mount right where you want it to mount. And then Backblaze should see it and match it and do all the magic things that Backblaze can do. So that's the magic there. I hope, because if that doesn't work, I don't know what else would. So
could you use Unmount from the terminal?
You could like to unmount a drive, because that's what Unmount does, right? Yeah, but I mean, I would do it in the Finder with the eject, just in case the Finder does more than, because I think Unmount won't delete. I think Unmount would cause this problem because Unmount doesn't delete the mount point, right? Because that in Unix generally you don't delete the mount point. You leave it where it is, and then you just say go mount here, and you're very specific about it. When you add a drive to macOS, it's trying to do it, in this sort of pretty and don't bother the user with the underpinnings way. And so it doesn't mount to the same point. So when you eject a drive, not only does it unmount it, it then deletes the folder that it was using as a mount point so that it can use it, so it can create it again. So yeah, I wouldn't use Unmount. I would use eject. Yeah. Disk utility will also eject it fine, with unmount, but it'll do it properly. Yeah.
Right. And kind of as a follow-up here, but say you're having this problem with your machine name instead of a volume name.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the way I found, and they moved it again, of course, because it's Ventura. But here's where you can get to that value. It's not where it used to be. They moved it again. Sharing local host name, and you're going to see the local host name of the machine. And I remember having a problem one time where, something similar would happen. It'd be like, oh, your machine name is JB Mac Mini 1. And I'm like, no, it's not. And it's like, oh, yes, it is.
Oh, yes, it is. That's right. It's basically in the same spot, I think, in Monterey. Because I just went, because I'm still running Monterey here, as we've discussed. I went to System Preferences Sharing, and it's called Computer Name at the top of the screen there. So, I mean, it's got a different label, but it's still in the sharing preference pane. So, yeah. But yes, that is where you would, if you notice your Mac's name on the network starts getting the 1, 2, 3, it's basically seeing echoes of itself. And I know that's strange to say, but on the Mac, when one Mac is alive on the network and awake on the network, and another Mac goes to sleep, there will be a handoff as that Mac is going to sleep. And it's the Bonjour Sleep Proxy handoff. And what happens when this handoff goes through is it says, hey, like if let's say my Mac in the office is going to sleep, but the Mac in the studio is awake. My Mac in the office will say to the Mac in the studio, hey, I'm going to sleep. Will you be my Bonjour Sleep Proxy? And it says, well, okay, what services are you running? And it'll tell it, I'm running file sharing and printer sharing, or whatever it's, whatever sharing services it's running. And it'll say, cool, I got you, man. And then the Mac goes to sleep, and the Mac in the office goes to sleep. The Mac in the studio says, okay, if anybody's out there on the network looking for computers, I'm going to advertise not just myself, but this thing down in the Mac down in the office, because it asked me to do that. And it will advertise that it is file sharing and print sharing. And then when somebody goes to connect to it, the Mac here in the studio will be like, oh, okay, well, I can't actually service the file sharing request to the thing in the office. So I got to go tell the one in the office to wake up, and it'll pass a, magic Ethernet packet along. And it can do this over Wi-Fi too, but it's called the magic Ethernet packet, I think. I think we still call it that. I don't know. And it wakes it up, and then it says, all right, go answer this request, and it will. So that's how all that works. But that's why this happens, because sometimes the Mac in the office will wake up and there won't be the right, we'll call it the right unhandoff. And so it will see that the one in the studio is advertising itself as like mini office. And so the one in the office will be like, well, somebody else took that name, so I got to be mini office 1 or mini office 2. That's usually the thing that causes that problem. So there you go.
Well,
fun.
That leads to a question that may or may not be worth answering. How is that different from, or why does it do that as opposed to just wake on LAN?
Well, it is wake on LAN.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is wake on LAN so wake on LAN means is part of that process. It is the part where the Mac in the office can be woken up by another computer on the LAN, right? So that happens. But if we didn't have the Bonjour Sleep Proxy, what would happen is the Mac in the office would go to sleep, and it would no longer appear in the sidebar for anyone. So you wouldn't know that it had file sharing or printer sharing enabled. You'd have to just, as a user, you would have to
know to go there.
You'd have to know that you first needed to send a wake on LAN packet to that device, and then secondly, ask it, what services it's having. So with the Bonjour Sleep Proxy, it gets to go to sleep and still appear in the sidebar for everybody in the Finder.
And then complicate things by renaming itself.
and then eventually rename itself. Yeah. But does that make sense? Your question was good. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, it is using wake on LAN. It's just sort of, it's adding that layer to it so that the rest of the users on the network don't care whether the computer's asleep or not. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Which is great. I mean, it really is a power saving feature, because if you have a computer that has a resource of files or printers or remote control or whatever it is that you want people to get to, in the past, you just had to tell your computer, don't go to sleep with Bonjour Sleep Proxy, which has been here for many versions of macOS. This isn't relatively new. You just get to, you get to tell your Mac, sleep whenever you want and wake up when you need to, which is great. Yeah. So, good question. You want to take us to Gordon? Actually, no, you know what? We will do Gordon, but while we're on this whole thing, the infamous Johnny B in Discord asked, is there a way to manage which external volumes mount or don't mount for specific users? and that's why I figured we do it here in this section. He says, I want to prevent specific volumes from being accessed by specific users. Permissions doesn't seem to block them from it when I'm mounting them with, all permissions enabled. And this is running on Ventura 13.4. So first of all, the infamous Johnny B is right here on this show. So I don't know who this other infamous Johnny B is. This must be an imposter, John. But anyway, the way and several people commented, including Jam Cycler, who said you can use an Apple script and put the script application in the user's login items. And I put a little Apple script in there to do this. I use an Apple script to unmount my my clone drive when I start up. I have Carbon Copy Cloner unmount it after it does its cloning, but I don't want that drive there. I don't want Spotlight getting confused or anything like that. So I just wrote a little Apple script that does a shell script and uses the disk-util terminal command. It's all right there. I'll put a link in the show notes to the Discord thread where we have all this. But what you could do is for each user put in their login items an Apple script that unmounts the drives you don't want them to see. They could still launch disk utility and remount them, but at least it would be out of sight, out of mind, and that might be enough for what you're doing. The one thing I will say, though, is if you're using fast user switching, this isn't going to work. Because if you've got multiple users logged in at the same time, whoever logged in last gets to control which drives are mounted or unmounted, depending on which Apple scripts ran. So it could be a little wonky. I guess you could, now that I'm thinking about it, you could use Keyboard Maestro to intelligently mount or unmount the drives depending on the logged in user, so long as every user was running Keyboard Maestro. That would be another way to do it. Now that I think about it. I don't know. Right? I mean, right? So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Any questions, or are we going to Gordon? Pete? I think Pete's muted. Pete's very quiet. And this is rare for Pete because Pete's not usually that quiet. But
not always, but
Not always. Yeah.
So we can go to Gordon. I want everybody that's driving to pull over at this time and pull out your notepad and write down that Pete got one right. Note the date and time. File this under even a blind squirrel. Gordon writes, I hope you can provide me with some help for an issue I'm having with the Fontbook app that is part of the Mac OS. It appears it has suffered some sort of corruption. There's supposed to be a collections category located on the left panel of Fontbook's app. On my user account, it is missing. Issues that I know about. Missing the collections category in the left panel. If I try to add a new collection by clicking New Collection from the File menu, nothing happens. If I try to add a new Smart Collection by clicking New Smart Collection from the File menu, it opens up the dialog box to create a new Smart Collection, but once I name it, add rules, and then click OK, the new Smart Collection does not show up. Boy, it's getting stubborn. Troubleshooting he did. He deleted the preference files and found at this location, libraries, containers, com.apple.fontbook.data, library preferences, yada, yada. He says, this is only happening on my user account. I opened Fontbook on a test account, and it works properly. I've attached 2 screenshots, so one from my test account where it works, one from my user account where it's missing. Any suggestions to recover the missing panels would be great.
That's really bizarre.
Yeah, it was. I wrote back, hi, Gordon. My guess, and I emphasize the word guess, is that something is possibly wrong with these files. And I pasted a graphic in there. Of course, it's in the way it emails.
It's in library font collections.
Thank you.
Home library font collections is where you pointed Gordon on this one.
That's where I found it. I said, make sure you have a good backup of these files. Delete the folder and restart Fontbooks. Try it at your own risk. Emphasize, right? Yeah. So Gordon wrote back, thank you, Pete. You set me on the path to success. For some reason, my font collections folder was missing in action. Somewhere in my deep dark past, it got deleted, probably with me messing with something I should not have. I recreated the folder, font collections, that's one word, with a capital C, capital F, capital C. And the collections section reappeared in the left panel of Fontbook. Of course, it did not contain any of the pre-made collections, Fun, Modern, PDF, Traditional, and Web, which is fine, as I did not need those. But if I want them, they are easy to recreate. And after that, I was able to successfully create my smart collections And for FYI, I created 3 smart collections, handwritten serif and sans serif fonts. Hopefully it won't go to your head, Pete, but you outsmarted ChatGPT and many worthless Google results in getting my problem solved.
That's really interesting.
For
So,
the win.
like, it would, in this case, the app was looking for settings that it couldn't find.
Yeah. And then it wouldn't write the file.
But it wouldn't create the folder. It would recreate the settings files, but the folder had to exist first.
Yeah.
That's what a great troubleshooting tip is, first of all, knowing where it should have been, which is really hard.
Yeah.
Like if something doesn't exist, knowing that it should exist is tough.
And I was able to give that because it did exist on my machine.
For you, it did. But if Gordon, Gordon could have looked in his test account, right? Like,
right.
I mean, but again, knowing where to look is it's tough. Yeah. But that's really interesting because I would have expected that Fontbook would have been able to create the folder because third-party apps do this, right? Like they do it all the time. They create folders for themselves and then populate them. So a third-party app would not have had this problem. It would have just created it fresh.
Yeah, so in a way, I didn't get the answer, but he got it with my hint because there was no Fontbooks.
Well, that's it.
And so I'll create it. And so my telling him to delete it would have actually led to disaster.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
fairness,
deleting. But like there's also there's multiple lessons here because one of them is what you just said, where in this case, best to delete the contents of the folder, not the parent folder itself.
Yeah.
Although again, with a third-party app, I would give the other advice. So this is one of those, Apple doesn't. Yeah. Apple presumes that folder's going to exist and fails when it doesn't. And that's it's just interesting that
it doesn't recreate it.
It doesn't recreate it. Yeah. Huh. So, fascinating. All right. Well,
that was fun to get one right like that, though.
Oh no, that's fun. Yeah, for sure. We have some cool stuff found to go through.
No way.
And so I will dive us into that. Porthos John in our Discord chat says, I found this great power strip for HomeKit geeks out there. It is the Maros Wi-Fi 15 amp power strip, only $30 on Amazon. We've got a link there in the show notes, of course. And what's cool about this thing is it works with HomeKit, Google Assistant, Smart Things, Amazon A-Lady. It has 4 3-pronged AC outlets on it, which great. And each of those can be individually controlled via any of the previously mentioned assistants. And then it's also got 4 USB-A ports on there. All 4 of them are controlled as a separate switch, so can be on or off. But pretty cool. And for $30, like that's not terrible. So if you need a bunch of switches, like I'm thinking, the Christmas tree lights and things like that would be great for. The one thing that is an asterisk here is that it is a 2.4 gigahertz only device, and it's one of the dumber 2.4 gigahertz devices in that you have to have your phone on 2.4 gigahertz when you set it up. So, the whole, if you've got like Eero, you can tell it turn off 5 gigahertz for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, and then you'll do your thing. If you don't have Eero, then, you have to change the name of your 5 gigahertz network temporarily, do this, and then set it back up. But so it's got that little pain in the neck because they didn't write smart software inside the, probably in the app would be my guess. But anyway, other than that, then once it's working, then you can turn 5 gigahertz back on. That's all fine. So yeah, pretty good one. I like it. You got one for us, John?
Yes, I do. Patrick writes in, quick story. Each year I buy my wife and kids the same gift for Christmas. One year everyone got AirPods, then Global Entry, etc. This past year was the Aura frame. The things that sold me on the frame was unlimited photo storage without an ongoing subscription. And the best part is we have access to each other's frames. See the screenshot, which you can see the screenshot if you go to their site. We can add photos to their frames, and they can add to ours. You can see recently added photos and copy to your frame. Basically, it works just the way you would want it to work. So, thank you, Patrick.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's nice.
I've tested one of these Aura frames a number of years ago, and it looks like they've gotten way more options out there, and at different price points. Like you can, I seem to recall them being quite expensive in the like $300 to $500 range when I tested them initially, but now you can start for like $149, which is great. We used. When we bought a bunch of these, we kind of did the same thing, and it's great with our kids sort of living all over the world now, being able to just put stuff on frames in our various homes. We used skylight frames when we did this, and that's what we still have. But it sounds like these Aura frames have gotten a lot better since in a lot of ways, not just pricing, but in terms of being able to send around and all that stuff. That's pretty good. Yeah. I will tell you, life-changing to be able to just send pictures to each other or even just to your own frame. Like, so much of our lives are on our digital devices now, to be able to just say, oh yeah, we were at Foo Fighters the other night, which was great. It's like, oh, let's put some of those pictures we took up on the frame so that you just see them in the kitchen. And it's like, oh, that was fun, whatever. So it's good.
Yeah. The only thing that concerns me.
Yes, sir.
Looking at the features here, one thing they highlight, and I don't know if they should, unlimited storage, no fees, share photos and videos worry-free with no storage limit, no memory cards. I would have expected they could have tossed the memory card reader in there.
Why would they need that, though? I mean, it's Wi-Fi.
If you want to take your SD card out of your camera and plug it into a frame and look at all the pictures.
Yeah, this is more for take pictures with your iPhone. Right. I mean, that's.
You use their app to upload it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's all cloud-based, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the whole idea of, because I've done it, like when we're on vacation, I'll sit and, maybe one night or whatever, in the Airbnb, I'll queue up a bunch of pictures and I'll just fire them off to the skylight frame. And then when we get home, it's like, look, our vacation pictures are already just in rotation here. And it's great. That's pretty good. Yeah, I got to dig back into these Aura frames. This looks like it's evolved quite a bit. Very nice. Very nice. I like it. All right. I promised that I had something nice to say about Core Audio. I know. Things happen, man.
All right, pull over again, folks.
That's right.
Mark
it down. Yep. So I was looking at the release notes for SoundSource, which is a piece of software that Rogue Amoeba makes, and it's great. It lets you control the volume on, if you've got like an external set of like an external audio device on your Mac that doesn't let your Mac do volume control. It'll do that. It'll let you send the audio from one app to a certain output device and another app to another output device. It makes life, it's great. Like once you start using it, especially if you have multiple audio devices, it just becomes second nature, and it's great. I was looking at the release notes, and they mentioned that they added support for the AUSoundIsolation plugin. Now, I know that AU means an audio units plugin, and when it starts with AU, that generally means that it is an Apple-provided plugin. And indeed, AUSoundIsolation is a plugin that is included with Ventura, and it does some magic stuff. It is built for voice. The way it's set up, they might be able to add, or they might add other things in the future, but currently it is built to take your voice and isolate it from background noise. And so I tried it with a really good mic that I have down in my office, and it was like, oh, that's actually pretty good. There was like a guy mowing the lawn, outside, and it was able to cut that out. And I thought, wait a minute, let me try it with my crappy webcam, because those microphones are awful, and they pick up all the bounciness of the room, plus every sound in the background and all of that good stuff. And I made a little recording. But I'm on my webcam mic, which is awful. Picks up all the room, and I'm sure you're hearing that weed whacker or leaf blower or whatever it is outside, right? Let's turn this off and see what happens. He doesn't even have that thing fired up, but actually he does. There he is. He's going nuts with it. Can you hear it? It's right next to my office. Let's turn AU sound isolation off. So now it's just idling out there, but I bet it's louder than it was before when he had it fired up. Let's try it again with this back turned on. I think this is a pretty cool little plugin. Nice for Apple to include it.
It's eye-watering how good that is.
And there are like this is on its default settings. You just set it and forget it and just use it. If I was on Ventura here, I would have this in my workflow for the podcast feed. I'm not, because for all the reasons we've discussed, but it did remind me that Isotopes RX has a similar plugin. And so I do have that now in the flow here. I don't have it turned on today. They've got a plugin as part of RX called Voice Denoise. Now, of course, you have to pay for that, but it does kind of the same thing. And so if like Pete, if you're in a hotel room ever where there's like noises or whatever, I can just kick that in and
to be fair, you're paying for the Apple one too. It's just it's included.
That's fair.
But
that's fair.
Let me ask you to do this though, Dave. Would you go through what you talked about? You educated me yesterday on it, and I thought it was a great education. You talked about the wet and 100% and why you want 100% and why you don't and all that.
Sure.
So when someone looks at those settings in the AU sound isolation.
Yeah. So first you have to put this in line wherever you would put an audio plugin in line. And if that doesn't make sense to you, there's a deeper path to go down, and probably one that's better to do like in Discord or whatever with us. So macgeekgab.com/Discord. But you would put this in line in, say, like Logic or Garage. I think you'd probably do this in GarageBand. I don't see why you couldn't, but I could be wrong about that. It's been a long time since I've used GarageBand. But you'd put it in Logic. You could put it as a block in Audio Hijack. It appears there. You can put it on the output in Sound Source, which is a little weird because Sound Source doesn't let you do input stuff, but it does support it on the output. So wherever you would put like a reverb plugin or a compression plugin or whatever, like that's where you would put this. And then, as Pete mentioned, there are two settings when you pull up the plugin in one of those places. One is what you want to isolate. And as I said before, you get one choice, and it's voice. So there's really no setting there, but you can see it's a drop down that could be populated with other things. The other is a slider between 100% dry and 100% wet. Now, what that means is dry would be the signal you are sending it. So in the case that I played for you, the very loud, boomy, crappy sounding microphone. Wet is the result of the plugin. You could slide that slider around and get some of the dry sound with, some of the wet sound. Where the wet dry thing really makes sense is with reverb. You would very rarely want to have 100% wet because all you would get is the reverb and none of the main signal. That would sound very weird. There's times where that might be desirable. But with this, you want it 100% wet. But like I said before, just leave this plugin at its defaults. Don't even worry about wet versus dry. Just leave it alone. See, this is what I deal with Pete, folks, because this is why Pete's audio adjusts itself and all this stuff, because Pete goes in and messes with all the settings.
That's what I do.
And so it is Pete that asks questions like this. I love these questions, but when I say leave it alone, there's a reason for that. I would.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'll grant that. Go ahead and finish, because
I'm finished. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
That's good.
Well, so you mentioned GarageBand, and guess what? So I opened GarageBand. I've been editing my show in GarageBand a lot.
Yep.
I'm switching over to another program, but I still like GarageBand. Once you have your audio tracks up and in there, if you hit B, the letter B, a little window comes up at the bottom, and you click on the output tab in the center, and then go over to the master tab on the left, and there's plugins. And if you pull down on the plugins, go to the very bottom, it says audio units, then over to Apple, and the very last plugin at the bottom is audio sound isolation built into GarageBand.
Great. And opening GarageBand while we're doing a podcast is like something
what could
that
go
would
wrong?
petrify me. That's right. Yeah.
Well, not to worry, Dave. I'm on Ventura.
Right. I will say this is not new in Ventura. It is. I am newly aware of it, but it has been there since the betas. Because as soon as I started searching online for this, I was like, "What is this magic?" And it might even be something, I don't know this, but you might be able to grab that plugin from a Ventura machine and put it on a Monterey machine. I don't know though. It might take advantage of some frameworks that only exist in Ventura. It's hard to say, but I have seen people take other plugins from one version of a macOS and move them to another. They're just audio units plugins. So unless it's leveraging some, secret framework, or maybe not secret, but something that doesn't exist in Monterey. So I should try that, because that would be interesting to see for academic reasons, to see if it works. So, Jawohl. Well, gentlemen.
Where?
It seems like, but yeah.
Got to behave. There's gentlemen in the area.
And I use that term. Yep. The time has come. Much as we might not want it to, the time has come here. John, you got anything to share before we get out of here? I mean, I know there's going to be some advice I ask you for in a few minutes, but just before we get to that.
No, it's been a great run.
I agree, man. Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you, John. This has been a great run indeed. Thank you both for doing today's episode with us. Thanks to CacheFly for providing all the bandwidth to get the show from us to you. Thanks to you, all of you, for buying merch. We're going to talk about Pete's shirt in a little bit, but you'd find that at macgeekgab.com/merch. Check out Pete's other podcasts. So There I Was. And I have 2 other podcasts as well, Business Brain and Gig Gab, the latter being for musicians or people who are interested in the kind of conversations that happen backstage, which might not be as exciting as you think, but you might find them interesting if you're into live music. Thanks to our sponsors for this week, as we discussed during the show, shadyrays.com/MGG and notion.com/MacGeekGab. I did go through this week the list at macgeekgab.com/sponsors. All the deals there are up to date. Go check those out too. Thanks for hanging out with us, folks. John, would you do me the honor? Would you do us all the honor of reading the shirt that Mr. Pilot Pete has?
And this advice is for all of you, and even though I will not be here in the future to give it to you, the advice that I have now is don't get caught.
Made on a Mac.
That's good advice. Later. I'm around. Sweet.